Jermaine Johnson announced on social media on Monday that he will miss the rest of the season with a torn Achilles. Johnson had 7.5 sacks and 25 pressures last season, both second on the Jets, only to Bryce Huff. ESPN's Dan Graziano reports that the Jets and Reddick could be agreeing to a deal soon before their Week 4 game against the Broncos. He added that Reddick's representatives would like to have a decision be made by September 29th. Otherwise, he might hold out for the rest of the season. Reddick's representatives also said he wants no less than $25 million per year at this point. Reports say that the Eagles could be interested in trading for Reddick again if the Jets can't reach a deal. Eagles edge rusher Josh Sweat called the Eagles pass rush unacceptable after collapsing versus the Falcons on Monday Night Football. All right, so why don't we just get into the Jets and the whole Jermaine Johnson situation? It's unfortunate that Jermaine Johnson torn his Achilles. And any Jet fan that was watching the game was probably sad for Jermaine Johnson, because after what he did last year, being in his first Pro Bowl, and the weight that he put on this year, and just how good he looked throughout the preseason and OTAs, you would have thought that Jermaine Johnson was going to have a breakout year. He was going to have 11 sacks. He was going to be one of the best linebackers or defensive ends the Jets have had in a very long time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will never know, because Jermaine Johnson, after quarter one, tears his Achilles and is out for the season. It's a horrible look. Anybody that watched it, it was disgusting. I thought it was a lot worse than an Achilles. I thought he tore his ACL and his Achilles. That's how bad it looked. It's unfortunate. And if you're a Jet fan, you have to look at a guy like Haason Reddick to fill in that position. And the Jets are going to have to open up their pockets now, because they can't sit and wait. Now, Will McDonald looked sensational. He looked fantastic. If there was anything that really stood out in that game, it was Will McDonald. He had 3 sacks, could have had 4. He was unbelievable. He really was. He stood up, and he stood for what the Jets were looking for in Jermaine Johnson in this pass rush for the last 2 weeks. Now, will he be able to do it week in and week out? Only time will tell. Now, he needed to put on some weight in the offseason. He really didn't. He put only 5 pounds on. They wanted him to put about 15 to 16 pounds on. So a lot of people thought that the Jets and Robert Saleh weren't going to use him more than a third down type of linebacker, or even a defensive end, wherever they were going to stick him. But after week 2, he proved that he could be a big part of this defense moving forward. What worries me right now is you're depending on a young kid. Last year barely played. Now, he had 3.5 sacks last year. He was great. He really was. For a guy that was a rookie that everybody was taking shots at because the Jets drafted at number 15 in the first round, he looked a lot better than I expected him in season 1. He already has almost the same amount of sacks as he did in season 1 in 1 game. And the Tennessee Titans offensive line isn't the best offensive line, but it's not a bad offensive line. It's the middle of the pack offensive line, probably 15, 16 right now in the NFL. So what Will McDonald did wasn't against one of the worst offensive lines in football. It really wasn't. It was a decent offensive line that really didn't think that Will McDonald was going to shoot the way he did. Now, everything that you've heard about Will McDonald, his bend is unbelievable. He knows how to get around. He's got a tremendous amount of speed when you give him some lanes. He's got a tremendous amount of ability. The problem is his weight and his size as a defensive end. Now, does that mean that he can't be a predominantly good offensive lineman? Absolutely could. But the Jets cannot depend on Will McDonald to be their only pass rusher for the rest of the season. What I saw on Sunday at 1 o'clock as a Jet fan made me sick. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why it made me sick. Everybody wants to talk about how great Aaron Rodgers is. Everybody. They want to say, oh, Aaron Rodgers, he's great. He's fantastic. Let's look at what Aaron Rodgers has done in week 1 and week 2. Does anybody know that Aaron Rodgers in 2 back-to-back games has never in 10 years thrown under 200 yards? Does anybody know that? Just so all you Jet fans that love what you saw with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has been a shell of himself. Now, he's coming back from injury. He needs time. We all know this. But for all the Jet fans that thought, oh, this is going to be a great season, we're going to see Aaron Rodgers back to what he was doing with the Green Bay Packers, and he's going to be a superstar guy. He's going to be a top 5 quarterback, as I thought he was going to be. Yes, I'm saying it. I thought he was going to be. But in week 1 and week 2, he has not been that. And for you Jet fans, yes, you New York Jet fans that think that Aaron Rodgers is the answer for the next 2 years, maybe he's not. Maybe he is not. Now, you're going against a team like the Patriots. And I'm going to get into Robert Saleh and my thoughts to Robert Saleh. Don't you worry. I've got my own thoughts to good old Robert Saleh, who's probably, in my eyes, the worst coach right now in the AFC. Yes, you heard it from me. He is horrendous as a head coach. But we're not going to get into Robert Saleh. We're going to get into Thursday Night Football, where the Jets have a chance to go 2-1 and have a chance to compete with the Buffalo Bills, because we know Miami without Tua is not going to take the next step. Tom Brady is not coming out of retirement. For all you Miami fans or whoever you want to predict is going to fill in for Tua for the next couple of weeks, could be 6 to 7 weeks, people are saying.
Maybe we're like Jets legend Mike White.
I don't know what they're going to do. And I have Tua on one of my fantasy teams. I have no idea as a Jet fan or even as a fantasy owner what I'm going to do moving forward with Tua. But the Jets have a chance to go against a Patriot team that has a lot of good things to talk about and a lot of bad things to talk about. We do know they have a rookie coach who's done better in the first 2 games of his career, better than Robert Saleh has done for 3 years. Okay? That's the fact. Just look at it. All right? We do know that they don't have a number 1 wide receiver, so this is good for the Jets secondary. That has played pretty well. They have been. They've played well. But that doesn't say or sell anything to me at MetLife Stadium at their first home game of the season, when Aaron Rodgers is going to be running out with an American flag, dancing and prancing around at MetLife Stadium. I am not happy on what I have seen offensively for the New York Jets. I'm sorry, I'm not. And I'm going to tell you this. I want to see more Braylon Allen. I want to see more of him. Because every time he touched the ball, he caused havoc. He did score a touchdown in his first NFL game, too, in week number 2.
Where was that last week?
Why isn't he running the ball or being used more in different formations? Now, I understand Breece Hall is their star. And I know Breece Hall has looked pretty good. But Breece Hall's out. He's definitely got to play better. He's definitely got to play better. If they're going to run the ball, if he's going to touch the ball, what is it, like 25 to 30 times a game? If he's touching the ball that much, he's got to do more. He has to do more. He has to be Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey is to the San Francisco 49ers. If he's not doing that for the New York Jets, it's not going to open up the field for Garrett Wilson, who's the first year with Aaron Rodgers, and Mike Williams, who's a rented player. That's what he is, a rented player. And where are the tight ends in the last 2 games? Where's Conklin? Where's Jeremy Rucker? Where the hell are these guys? That has to do with coaching. Now, to Bambi Saleh, the great Robert Saleh. For all you Jet fans that want to sit here and think that Robert Saleh is going to make a difference. The play calling, this is the truth. The play calling in the first 2 quarters was horrible. Absolutely horrible. 7 points in the first 2 quarters. They couldn't do anything in the first quarter. And if you look at Robert Saleh's career as a Jets head coach, the Jets are the worst first quarter team in NFL history. NFL history. The Jets do not score in the first quarter. They have problems doing that every single season since Robert, a.k.a. Bambi Saleh, took over. It's embarrassing that this team can't figure it out. You have Aaron effing Rodgers out there, the superstar quarterback that we believe he is. And I don't know what he was doing in the first quarter. I don't know what this offense is doing in the first quarter. And could the Jets actually hold on to the ball? Why are we going 3 downs in like 5 seconds? They're running the ball. First down, second down. Then they're throwing the ball on third downs, which every single team knows they're going that way. Every team knows on third down they're throwing the ball after they keep running the ball on first and second down. It's not rocket science, Mr. Bambi. It is not rocket science. And everybody keeps saying Robert Saleh is a great defensive coordinator. He's the best. Tennessee has Will Levis. Will effing Levis. Tennessee had a chance to win this game at the end of the game because of terrible defense, letting them throw the ball down the field. Will Levis. Embarrassing. I don't care if they won. It doesn't matter that they won. I want to see growth. And Jet fan says, well, there is growth. They won. Growth? You think that's going to sell to a fan that's been watching a team for the last 30 some odd years wanting to throw up every single year? From quarterback to quarterback, running back to running back, defense to defense, offensive line to offensive line. It's embarrassing. I don't want to hear how great this team has played in week number 2. Because they weren't good. Now, heading to MetLife. This is a chance for the Jets to shut down the New England Patriots. Shut the New England Patriot fans up. Going up 1-0 against New England in a new season. This is the first time they're playing a division game. This is very important for the New York Jets to come out a winner. Very important. Miami and Buffalo just played. Buffalo wins. New England is going to have an opportunity to go up 1-0 in the Division 2. Divisional games are the most important games if you expect to win the division, if you expect to make the playoffs. This is your first home game. Show up on Thursday Night Football. Show up on a game where everybody in the world is going to watch the New York Jets and not want to throw up. And I want to throw up every single day of my life when I watch this damn team. On Sunday, I was on and off with this team. On and off. After the first quarter, I took a dump. It was probably 25 minutes. I didn't even watch the second quarter. I didn't have to because I know what was going to happen.
I guess it's an improvement from last year. We wanted to throw
and
something
everybody
at
makes
TV.
a joke. I'm serious. When I go to the bathroom, I'm enjoying myself. If I have to go, I'm going. But this team that shows up in one half and doesn't show up in 4 quarters, that's got to stop. That has to stop. I have not watched this team play 4 great quarters in almost a year and a half. A year and a half. And as a Jet fan, and Keith, I'm reading all the stuff that you're saying. I'm watching everything. I'll get into the Giants. I will get into the whole Saquon Barkley situation with Philadelphia, which everybody wants to blame Saquon on the loss, which I think is ridiculous, but that's a whole nother story. He did choke. He did drop the ball. He didn't keep his eyes on the ball, but nevertheless, that wasn't all his fault. How about the Eagles defense showing up in the game? How about that in the fourth quarter? Atlanta, yes, the Atlanta Falcons actually showed up in the fourth quarter. And yeah, Kirk Cousins, who, by the way,
I was gonna say.
by the way, Keith was telling me how bad he was, and let's make a bet. We're going to see Michael Penix a lot sooner than later. That's not going to happen. Just so you know.
It's also the Monday Night Football.
Unless somebody goes down.
Kirk Cousins hasn't won a game on Monday Night Football.
Raheem Morris is not going to allow that to happen. That's just me. But to finish up on my thoughts, and I'm sure Speedy has his own thoughts, and we'll bring Fish in because I would love to hear what Fish had, his thoughts with the New York Jets. The one thing I could say for you Jet fans, and this is good information, and you can take this to the bank, and hopefully it'll make you guys rich one day. Don't quit your day job. Don't quit your day jobs for all you Jet fans out there. Because if you think that winning this game against the Tennessee Titans and Will Levis is a breakout game and it's going to take the Jets to the top, boy, oh boy, I don't think you guys have seen what Josh Allen has done in the last back-to-back weeks. Because if you haven't, please go watch it. Because that's what a quarterback's supposed to do. That's what a quarterback gets attacked to. And how many people have attacked him in the offseason and show up week in and week out and just shut everybody up? He doesn't even have to say anything. No, you have Aaron Rodgers going to banquets and events saying, we're going to be great. Don't jump off the bandwagon. Don't jump off the bandwagon.
Yeah, and that's the difference of good coaching versus bad coaching.
Please.
With the Jets and the Bills. What was the talk all offseason with the Bills? Oh, they're going to fall off on defense. They lost a lot of secondary pieces. Obviously, we were talking about Milano a couple weeks ago getting hurt. And the Bills defense, besides one bad quarter against the Cardinals, have looked great all season long. Meanwhile, the Jets have continued to have issues with certain concepts of the game. And this game, even too, they were getting beat with some big plays in the air, too, which their secondary is supposed to be the best in the football, like we were saying. And DeAndre Hopkins beat him with a big play that you just showed, Fish. You saw Calvin Ridley with that touchdown in the first quarter that beat him. Like, even in their strengths, they were getting beat in that game. And Tennessee was not afraid to be aggressive and try to mix things up. It wasn't for their bad mistakes on their part in the second half, like you're showing, Fish, the blocked punt, a couple of bad decisions by Levis. They lose that game. Brian Callahan continues to do better these first two games against the Bears and the Jets, against teams that they're much better than. The Titans are in these games, and the Jets could not adjust for the most part.
Everything that I saw, and yes, special teams actually showed up, and they usually do. I would say the Jets' best part of their season so far is their special teams. They actually showed up in week 1, and they've showed up in week 2. And if they used a little bit more of Braylon Allen, hey, I would believe that the Jets have something special over there as a running back. I understand Breece Hall is their guy. This guy is going to be phenomenal. And if you want to know who's Breece Hall's replacement in the next 2 seasons, you're looking at him. Go ahead, Fish. Let's hear it.
You're going to have an interesting type of Jets offense going forwards. They don't want to use the tight end. You know, Rodgers has used tight end in the past, but they're not going to use it because they have Garrett Wilson and they have Breece Hall, who's basically a receiver out of the backfield. He's basically Alvin Kamara when he was younger. And that's what you're looking at. He's that good. And now Braylon Allen looks like he might be a top 10 running back himself. I haven't seen a guy run at his size as fast and hard downhill. Brandon Jacobs comes to mind when he was first going early on. I think he runs better than Brandon Jacobs, clearly. He's a little low. I don't think he's as tall as Brandon Jacobs, but I'll say this. If you have those 2 backs in the backfield, and you go with the 3 wide receiver set, maybe it's Lazard, maybe it's some of the other guys and Williams on the other side, and you just have Wilson dominate because he's dominating out there. You got talent everywhere on that offense. Tyron Smith looks amazing. He had one of the top games for a tackle in the league last week, and that's great news. If he could stay healthy, that is quite the shot in the arm. So you guys have the weapons everywhere. So why should they have lost that game if you have all these weapons? They had a block punt. Levis makes this horrible mistake in the red zone in the first quarter, just fumbles the ball away, trying to do too much, had a couple of bad picks. They should have lost this. Without the block punt, they lose this game. This is a game that the Jets probably would have lost. And why does that happen? Well, you don't have a run defense. That's a big problem. And now you just lost one of your better run defender ends. So Haason Reddick's more of a pass rusher. I don't know where they're getting that interior run defense. I mean, there's another team like the New York Giants we'll talk about in a second whose run defense is worse than that. But it's a big problem. How are they getting dominated in time of possession? How are they losing turnover battles when teams are turning it over on not winning big when there's turnover battle wins like they're getting? They should be winning by a good 21 points if they're turning it over like this. I don't know what's going on. It probably is play calling. You're absolutely right, Errol. I don't know what's going on over there.
Oh, it's definitely play calling. There's no question it's play calling. And Robert Saleh looks like a deer in the headlights. I mean, seriously, why do we call him Bambi? Well, that's the reason why. I mean, the guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's lost. He's lost. And every time there's something wrong, he spreads his legs out and he has his head between his legs. I don't want to see my coach do that. It shows me that he's not confident about what this team is doing on the field. It shows me that you don't know what you're doing. And it tells me that the Jets as an organization has gone too many times all in with these stupid coaches. And at the end of it, they're making excuses why they should have gotten rid of him the year before.
You wonder too, like the creative concepts. It took forever to get into the game as well. Like you're talking about Braylon Allen fish. Like maybe they should try using more 2 running back sets if they're not going to do any tight end sets. You wonder if they could do that with 3 wide receivers or just 1 tight end with the 2 running back sets if Braylon Allen continues to play that well. And that was the first time you really saw the creativity, just something different than what you're expecting out of the Jets to be able to do that. Because Tennessee's got a good defense. Tennessee did not allow offensive touchdown last week. They traded for Snead in the offseason. They have a good secondary. Garrett Wilson was going to contain much of the first half until he finally broke out in the second half. Why? Because they don't know how to use these other targets and they don't know how to coach.
How about using more of Allen? How about that? I don't care if Breece Hall is, bothered by it on the sidelines. If Allen is playing better, you give him the ball. I don't want to hear it. It's all about winning, right, Breece? You want to win. You want to win a Super Bowl. That's why you brought Aaron Rodgers there. That's why you wanted this team to be better. That's why the Jets made a move for Haason Reddick and still doesn't have him signed. You want to win a Super Bowl. If Braylon Allen gives you the best chance to win against certain teams, then you play him. I don't want to hear it from Jet fans. Well, we got Breece Hall. We got him. He's great. He's this. He's that. Great for him. I want to win. I want to see this team make the playoffs after what? 14 years, 13 years of garbage. I want to see this team compete against the best teams in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. Yes, the Buffalo Bills. For all you Jet fans that thought this was going to be an easy division to win, I am sick. You see me? You see this energy? I watched enough. I was sitting at my girlfriend's father's house, spitting up curses, okay, that his wife didn't want to hear. I was saying words she probably never heard in Brazil. Okay, that's how bad it was. It was horrible.
On a scale of 1 to
I was spitting all over. I was going crazy. You know what? You know what set me good? It was her rice that she made from Brazil. That was good. The rice and beans. And by the way, it sent me to the bathroom as well. So that helped me too. Getting away from that game for a little bit. So there you go.
On a scale of 1 to last year when you wanted to throw something at a TV on a cruise ship, where did this one rank?
Oh. Well, as far as the curses are concerned and the enthusiasm of the game, I think you'd probably rather me throw something because she was like, well, hello, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. Whoa. I was like, Ron was yelling at me. I was like, listen, this is how I get when I watch this crappy Gang Green. They say, who the hell? Who names their team Gang Green? I wonder. Yes, the New York Jets, the worst team name in NFL history. Gang Green. It gives me Gang Green every time I watch them. Oh.
Well, I got a number for you, Errol, and it's a number that everyone likes. Is Blackjack 21, because that's what you're saying, Speedy, and that's what you're saying also, Errol, is 21 personnel. All right, you usually don't hear that in the NFL anymore. You see 12 with the 2 tight ends, but if you're going to have a 2-back type of a situation, and you're going, or really it's just 20, it's just 10 personnel. You're going to have only receivers and running backs. Took those 2 guys on the field all the time. Have it split back like a Spurrier offense from back in the day, where you got 2 backs in the backfield running routes. You have them getting the ball. You got all these counter plays. You have the great receiver outside, and you have 2 other guys, and you can bring a tight end in if you want for the slot guy every once in a while. That just makes too much sense to me. But then again, you got Nathaniel Hackett back there as co-try offensive
I got to think of
coordinator
a name
genius.
for him. I really have to discover a name for him. I like Bambi for him. Maybe we'll figure something out for Mr. Nathaniel Hackett.
You know, Hall's good enough.
It. That's all I'm going to say.
Definitely not.
No,
Look,
definitely can't.
Hall's good enough that you can motion him out into trips so you can have all your regular offense and have one back with Allen back there, and Hall becomes kind of like that, you know, Devin Hester, you know, in the slot gadget guy from back in the day. Like, that's what he could be like that out there. Maybe Marshall Faulk, like he went when the Rams would split him out in situations. They can do a lot with that if they're willing to do it. It's a lot of ego thing. You don't see 2-back offenses ever. I couldn't tell you the last time. The eye is extinct. The split back receiver.
2017. That was probably.
And who was the coach back then? It's Payton, who's an old school type of offense. So it's not surprising that they wouldn't go to this right away. But if you see that you have 2, possibly one top 5, one looks like he's the best rookie running back going right now, you got to put them both on the field. Look, if Braylon Allen doesn't know how to pass block, not that well, you get them off in 3rd downs and you go one back then. But please, you got to get these guys on the field. It's incredible how good they are, and you got a lot of talent. They got to be better than this.
Again, not using tight ends, Keith naturally says in the comment section they should have drafted Brock Bowers.
Well, first
he looks pretty good.
I still want to see what Conklin can do. He hasn't really touched the ball. I want to see what Jeremy Rucker could do. He hasn't touched the ball. I mean, Aaron's going to have to get these tight ends more involved. If you're going to use them in packages, use them right. And I think Tyler Conklin is actually a pretty good tight end. So to think that he hasn't touched the ball, I think he touched the ball once in the whole season in 2 games. That says a lot about what this offense is doing. And Nathaniel Hackett needs to wake up, because to me, this organization is depending on making the playoffs this year. And if they don't, Nathaniel Hackett, Bambi, and Mr. Joe Douglas will be looking for new jobs. And by the way, if Trump doesn't get into office, there's not going to be that many jobs left. Just kidding. Anyways, another loss to the New York Giants. The Giants lost 21-18 to the Commanders in a game where they lost a kicker in Graham Gano. In a game where he was already questionable. The Giants had to go for 2-on-2 of their 3 touchdowns and failed both times. The Giants became the first team in NFL history to score 3 touchdowns, allow none, and lose in regulation. WFAN Sal Licata says that firing Brian Daboll would be the worst idea for the New York Giants. WFAN Sean Marash said that the Giants should consider buying low on Bryce Young trade and then draft Archie Manning in 2026 if Young doesn't work out. Mike Francesa says he sees warning signs that Malik Neighbors could turn into a selfish player if the Giants continue their downfall. Neighbors has had 15 catches, tied for 2nd in the NFL, and 193 yards, 4th in the NFL through 2 games this season. First of all, to lose against the Commanders, you have to do many things bad. Many things bad. Okay? And when you look at what the Giants did, they didn't really do that many bad things in this game. They really didn't. I mean, Daniel Jones looked better. Okay. They ran the ball. Okay. It wasn't as good as it wasn't good. It was better than week 1, but it wasn't what we expect them to be with Saquon Barkley. They made some good plays in the open field, and they have a star in Malik Neighbors. They do. They have a superstar in Malik Neighbors. The fact that Giant fans or even Sean Maresh from WFAN thinks that playing bad for the next 2 seasons will get you Archie Manning, you're out of your damn mind. Sean, I've called your show. I've attacked you on some of your takes with Daniel Jones, comparing him to Aaron Rodgers. You telling me that they're better off bringing in a Waller and getting rid of Saquon Barkley. How does that work out? Waller's retired and Saquon Barkley has what? 5 touchdowns in 2 games? Yeah, great move, Sean. Great move. Right now, the Giants have nothing that stands out to you on what this team could be or what it should be moving forward this season. The defense looks horrendous. Besides Dexter Lawrence, this defense is horrible. And a guy that they paid, I don't know, $127 million, how many sacks does he have in 2 weeks? The answer? None. Zero. They decided to let Saquon Barkley go for a linebacker that's coming from Carolina, a good linebacker. But is he worth $28 million a year when you had a chance to pay your own guy that wanted to be there, that wanted to be a Giant for the rest of his career? Now, Sal Licata saying that Brian Daboll's firing would be horrendous for the New York Giants. Okay, you keep Brian Daboll. Let's look at what the Giants have done since Brian Daboll's wonderful first season. Okay, let's see. They drafted Kayvon Thibodeau. They looked pretty good last year against the bad teams, the bad offensive lines. Now, in the last 2 weeks, Kayvon Thibodeau crying. And who does this remind you of? I don't know. It was an offensive lineman that you drafted in the same year. That's right. Evan Neal complaining about the fans, complaining about what the team and the fans should be doing and this and that and all this other stuff, finding a way to make excuses. Where is that taking Evan Neal? I know what it's taking him. It's taking him to the bench and probably no job next year. And I'm going to tell you this right now. Kayvon Thibodeau, if he keeps it up, it's going to take him to the bench, and it's going to send Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll to the workforce program. Both those guys, Joe Schoen, and it's not rocket science to see what Malik Neighbors is. He's a good player. But we've seen these LSU guys demand the ball and want the ball all the time. AKA, I don't know, Justin Jefferson being one of them. How many times does he see the ball game? I don't know, 15, 18 times. How's that worked out for Minnesota? How many playoff wins does Minnesota have since Justin Jefferson has been the superstar wide receiver? The answer, I would think, 0. Am I right, Speedy?
You are right.
0. So what does Justin Jefferson bring to the table? It gives you an unbelievable regular season and nothing in the playoffs. Malik Neighbors, LSU guy. Odell Beckham, LSU guy. How many playoff wins does Odell Beckham have?
Only with the Rams.
I rest my case. Okay? If we go through all these wonderful wide receivers that came from LSU, let's go Jamar Chase. He's been in a Super Bowl. Did he win a Super Bowl? No. Jamar Chase asking for big money this offseason and hasn't gotten it yet. How's that working out for him? How's that working out for the Bengals right now? By the way, have not looked good in the first 2 weeks. They have not. Okay? Jamar Chase, who wants, I don't know, the biggest contract in NFL history for a wide receiver. What has he done? Here's the problem right now. These wide receivers are pre-Madonnas. And I agree with Mike Francesa. I agree with him. What is it going to take for Malik Neighbors to realize I'm the best player on this team? I'm the best. There's nobody better than me here. I want the ball. Throw the ball to me 15 to 20 times. If you don't, I'm not playing. Or, you know what? I'm going to bitch and moan to the press. And I'm going to say, do you see me on the field? Do you see what I do? The team sucks, but do you see me on the field? What does this remind you? Has anybody seen the movie Jerry Maguire? Remember Cuban Gooding Jr.? Remember what part he played? Remember how he was? This team sucks. My offensive line sucks. They're going to get me killed. What did he have to do to earn the respect of his teammates? Earn the respect to get his big contract. He had to shut up and play the damn game. Malik Neighbors and these prima donna wide receivers, it's different now. That movie came out in 96. These guys are making, at that time, $12 million for 3 years is big money. Now, these guys are making 28, 30, 35 million a year. You kidding me? They're just as important than what? Quarterbacks now in certain aspects of the game. I'm telling you right now, Joe Schoen is not going to last after week 6. And if the Giants believe that Joe Schoen or should have another chance, another kick at it at the end of the season and see what he could do and what he could build. Everybody keeps saying, well, the offensive line's played better. How much better? Let me ask you, how much better? Does it matter? This running game that they thought was going to be maybe not as good with Saquon Barkley, without Saquon Barkley, there's nothing there. There is no running game for this Giant offense. Nothing. There is nothing. I don't want to hear about this guy they drafted or that guy they drafted. They've got nothing. They have Malik Neighbors and everybody else. Nobody. There is Dexter Lawrence is the only defensive guy that I would keep on this team right now. Honestly, and that secondary, everybody was talking about, what was his name? Ward? Is it Ward?
Banks?
I'm sorry, Deontay Banks. I'm thinking about somebody else. Deontay Banks, okay? From last year. Remember, he was playing great in the second half. Everybody was like, oh, Deontay, this guy's going to be a number one. What's he done this year? You have to show up week in and week out. Sauce Gardner, we all know what he is, even though he doesn't shut the F up. He has a lot to say, and that's probably why he was sitting out in week 2. I heard there was a story that came out on the reasons why he sat out for the quarter against the San Francisco 49ers. I never got a chance to read it because I've been busy on vacation. Trust me, I'll get a chance to read it. The fact is, play the damn game. And the fact that Daboll did not find a kicker before the game, knowing that Gano was not healthy, that he was probably not going to be able to play in this game, that tells me that this coach has no idea what he's doing. He is absolutely lost. How could you go into a game and not have a decent kicker, have any kicker on your bench if you know Gano wasn't going to be healthy? It makes no sense. None of it does. And by the way, where is Joe Schoen, the GM, Mr. Bossman, who asks his kids who he should draft? Maybe he should ask his kids who he should bring off the scrap heap, because he has absolutely no idea what he is doing as a GM. I don't want to hear that he worked with Buffalo, and that was the reason why they drafted Josh Allen. Give me a break. He thought it was going to be a great move, bringing in some linebacker from another organization and not signing Saquon Barkley. How does that work? And I'm going to tell you this right now. That could be one of the worst signings the Giants have made in years. And I'm not saying that he's not a good linebacker, but to pay a guy $28 million with no sacks and 8 tackles in 2 games? There's a problem there, ladies and gentlemen. A huge problem.
Yeah, the Giants have a lot of problems with the offense, especially when the offensive line was actually holding their own again. Now, granted, it was against a really bad defensive line, so I'm not going to take much stock into it when your best edge rusher is Dorrance Armstrong. But you look at the Giants' offensive line actually holding their own, and the Giants still having offensive problems. Yeah, that's going to spell a lot of things that go wrong. If you would just say, if teams are going to say, let's just let Malik Neighbors do his thing and we'll stop everybody else, that's going to be, even for a bad defense, an easy game plan. Washington's secondary is not very good. Washington's edge rushers, like I said, are horrible, and yet they were able to hold an 18 points. That's a recipe for disaster. You were talking about the defense. It seems like the defensive game plan is to stop the number 1 receiver, which they did in Terry McLaurin. He only had 22 yards, but everyone else was going off on them. Noah Brown and I mean, Eckler out of the backfield's good, but then they got all these random guys going off on them, and that's extending drives. Brian Robinson's a good running back, fine, but you're extending drives, third down defense. That's not very good. Your run defense has been horrible all week, like you were talking about, Fish. And they look like they're a team that doesn't have an obvious sense of direction, and it still remains to be a problem. Yes, you have some top players, Lawrence, Thomas, Neighbors, fine. They can only get you so far. It's a 53-man roster. And as far as the kicker situation, there's enough guys on a 53-man roster that have practice squad eligibility. It's not hard to demote one of those guys for a week, go sign a veteran kicker. There's kickers cut all the time because there's only like 6 or 7 good ones in the NFL. Like, it's not hard to go get. Now you get Greg Joseph. You couldn't have done that last week. Like, he's been a fine kicker. Not great, but a fine kicker in his career. Instead, you have to go for 2, which, by the way, they have horrible play calls on their 2-point conversion plays. It was just an all-around disaster.
You're on mute.
It was bad. Guys, I can't stay rational talking about the Giants. So bear with me for a second. They played much better than the Commanders in that game. They didn't give up a touchdown. but they can't stop the run. So they ended up letting them score on every drive with a field goal. 7 field goals. It's unbelievable. I don't think I've ever heard of that happening. Again, they said there's the first time that's ever happened where a team scored 3 offensive touchdowns, the other team hasn't scored any, and they've lost the games. First time it's ever happened.
Touchdowns. They didn't even get a defensive or special teams touchdown.
But it's pretty wild. The Giants, look, Daniel Jones didn't really push the ball downfield. He targeted Neighbors on 2/3 of all targets in the game. So it's not like the offense was kind of like hard to figure out. If
nobody could get open.
Even the Redskins. I mean,
nobody got open. Oh, Malik Neighbors was the only one to get open. You're going to blame that on Daniel Jones? Daniel Jones.
I am going to blame it on Daniel Jones. I'm absolutely going to.
Daniel Jones did everything that he needed to do as a quarterback. He did. He was
to be like a Trent Dilfer. Like his numbers weren't good. They didn't score to over 20 points. Maybe they would have got a 21 with that field goals.
How about
with the extra point?
How about the play calling?
Yes.
That's not his fault.
I need to get to the play calling and the lack of a kicker on the thing. I'll tell you, I can't stand the lack of a kicker. That I'll never understand. That is a fireable offense. I don't agree with the rest of it. You guys were saying I think Newbin looks good. I think Drew Phillips looks great in the slot. I think he's one of the best players. He's probably the best player outside of Neighbors that we've got in the last couple of years in the draft. He looks really, really good. Like we found someone really special there. Banks shut down McLaurin pretty much all game, and he was talking smack, which he usually doesn't do. I was listening to he was very vocal in the game for the first time, really. So that's interesting. And John Michael Schmidt shut down Daron Payne, who is by far the best lineman on that Washington Redskins line. So there were definitely some positives, and Daboll this week has said that they're trying to build off of positives like that. You see some players growing, but the big, elephant in the room is the fact they can't stop the run at all. At all. Where are we getting the linebackers filling? Micah McFadden is trash right now. We have nobody. Isaiah Simmons can't do it. They don't have the depth in the front seven. They don't have Chapman might be good as this undrafted rookie free agent. That's who's playing next to Dexter Lawrence, and he's undersized. I don't even think he's even 6 foot tall. So they don't, and Nacho hasn't been very good. That's really what we're looking at. Just a whole bunch of nothing, not stopping the run. And then a guy like Brian Robinson Jr., who's good, not great running back, a tough runner, right? They make him look like he's, like Jerome Bettis out there. It was ridiculous. It was embarrassing. And they bent and broke only just enough to just have such a mid offense not be able to overcome it, because that's what it was. Daniel Jones didn't do anything special. He didn't do anything to lose the game. That's the old Trent Dilfer way. We yet to have a Ravens type defense to win with that, though. And that's definitely not what we're seeing.
Now we're getting the Ravens defense in maybe their worst season of franchise history.
Oh yeah.
I hold up. I think the Ravens right now being 0-2, everybody's like jumping off a bridge or a plank and think that this season's over. Be careful, because we know what this team is and we know how talented this team is. Be very, very careful on just throwing them under the bus and saying the season's over for them. I do not believe so. They haven't looked good in the last 2 weeks. The Ravens have talent. The Giants, there's a lot of questions with what talent they have. You mentioned some players. You like Deontay Banks? That's fine. I mean, I just gave you a player in Burns who has not been good. I mean, honestly, he has 8 tackles in 2 games and no sacks. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a problem. And if you're a Giant fan, and by the way, I like what I see with Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be a good player. I think he's really going to be good. I don't know if he's going to be the best quarterback in this class, but I think he's going to be good. And you could see him inside and out of the pocket. You see his legs. You see what he can do running and making accurate throws. I think the kid's going to be good. And by the way, they couldn't stop Brian Robinson. That we all know that. And again, when you look at Singletary, you look at his numbers, you're like 16 rushes, 95 yards, and a touchdown. That's not Saquon Barkley, guys. I'm sorry. No. It's not Saquon. If Saquon plays in this game, they probably win. I'm just speaking the truth. And I know, Keith, we will get into the Eagles debacle at the end of the game on Sunday Night Football. Oh, I'm sorry, not Sunday, Monday Night Football. And we will get into that. But I want to finish up with this whole Giant thing. Brian Daboll, the clock is ticking. It's ticking. Joe Schoen, the clock is very much ticking. And if these players don't figure things out, you should have beaten Washington. this team does not figure things out and they go 0-5 or 0-6, and I want to hear about Arch Manning, okay? That's not even next year. It's the year after. So you're going to tell me the Giants are going to have to be bad for the next 2 seasons to even think about getting Arch Manning? That's not going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. That's not going to happen. There is no way John Mara is going to let that happen. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen. And they're not going to let Joe Schoen draft another quarterback. And they're not. And everybody's going to say, well, he hasn't drafted a quarterback. Exactly. They don't want him to draft a quarterback. And they're probably going to have to draft a quarterback at the end of this season. So, and there's not many in this year's draft class. Maybe Beck. It looks good. I think Beck has been the most impressive quarterback so far in college football. But again, it's still early this season, and we'll see what these guys are going to be. Beck could be horrible in the second half. We've seen it. Geno Smith, remember that? He was going to be a Heisman Trophy winner, blah, 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 blah. He fell to the second round. It happens. So right now, the most impressive quarterback right now in college football is Beck. That's who it is. I want to hear Shedeur Sanders because it's not him. So it's, to me, I just think that the Giants and the Giant fans need to hold up on this whole Arch Manning thing. If you guys think for any thought in your mind that Arch Manning is a guarantee shot that the Giants are going to get him in 2026, this isn't Eli Manning, okay? It's not going to happen. So it's just not. No team is going to do that. No team is going to just hand over Eli Manning to the New York Giants. It's just not going to happen. So just my thoughts to that. Again, Giant fans, still early. It's still early. I see you crossing your fingers. I know that's what you want, Fish, but it's not going to happen.
Look, I don't want to suck for 2 years, but I'm not going to say no to Arch Manning, who looks like Eli and Peyton, but with wheels. I'll take that a million times out of a million. That would be amazing. But at the same time, let's face it. The Giants have made their bed. They gave Daniel Jones this money instead of Saquon Barkley.
Oh, so this is Daniel Jones's fault. This is all Daniel. This is what I mean about Giant fans. How could you blame this on this?
Everything else has to be perfect for that guy to be able to win. He's basically
Daniel
Trent Dilfer.
It's just not Daniel Jones. You're going to tell me the reason why the Giants didn't play well was because of Daniel Jones? Come on, Fish.
Look at Josh Allen. I know, look, we're not comparing the two.
We're going to get into all the games in week number 2 and our thoughts, because I think Josh Allen right now is
I won't talk about the game itself, but I'll just say this. They don't have much on that roster offensively, and he's carrying them to wins, and he's driving it, and they're just as scared of him as they were when they had Diggs going. That guy is unbelievable. A great quarterback can take a middling offense or below average offense and make them look good. Aaron Rodgers got guys like Alan Lazard paid for years, like Randall Cobb paid for years. These guys, that's what a great quarterback can do. Daniel Jones does not make anyone better. That's the old basketball argument, right? Do you make the rest of your teammates better? There's no one who's going to say Daniel Jones makes anyone better. Definitely not this offense.